All right, civil discourse in 2019 is not off to a great start with the new divided government in Washington, despite top former Democratic leaders calling for an end to all this divisiveness.
If we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
This country has to come together. This division that exists, this hatred, this ugliness, it really has to come to an end.
Time now for tonight's Power Panel. Fox News contributor, former Clinton pollster Doug Schoen, president of Real Clear Politics Tom Bevan, and the editorial director of the Daily Caller, Vince Colanese. Thank you all for joining us tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be with you.
Okay, so Doug, you heard the former First Lady, former Secretary of State, the former Democratic nominee for the presidency herself. She said if they won back the House, it's time to become civil again. And for some folks on the Hill, they don't think that's exactly how it sounds on day two into this new House control.
Well, first of all, it isn't civil. We've heard that today. We've heard some vile rhetoric and threatening to impeach the president. Introducing articles of impeachment isn't, in my judgment, good politics or civil. I also would tell you that I don't think the Democratic Party itself is united. There are fissures, to be sure, in the Republican Party. But as the report suggested, there are divisions in the Democratic Party, all of which leads me to believe we're going to have more contention, more bitterness, more polarization.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, how does the new speaker, newly re-speakered, how does she deal with this new batch of Democrats? Because, you know, she talked today about this generational gap, the language that was used going after the president, so shouldn't be making such a big deal about it. But there are a lot of these new freshmen and other members who are newer at this who say, we want impeachment, we expect you to do this, we want climate change to be the number one thing we're talking about. They're really kind of trying to overshadow what she may have planned as speaker. How does she manage that? Can she?
Well, it's going to be hard, and it's going to take all of her political skill. We know she's very good at this. She's good at legislating. She's good at fundraising. She's good at corralling votes. But this is a different situation, as you mentioned. I mean, just the roar that Rashida Tlaib got for those comments sort of is the tell that this is where the hunger for the Democratic base is not for civility. It's for engaging against Trump. Across the board. And so in addition to that, Democrats are going to need to, that's not good enough for them. They're going to have to put forward some piece of legislation, some agenda that shows the country that they actually can govern. And to the point that was made earlier, I mean, there are fissures within the Democratic Party on issues like pay-go, on climate change. It's going to be very difficult for Nancy Pelosi to corral those votes. It's going to take all of her skill, and we'll see where she ends up.
Well, Vince, this is how Kimberly Strassel, the Wall Street Journal, sums up the plan. She says, America, meet the Pelosi House, articles of impeachment, a move to abolish the Electoral College, comparisons of the president to Hitler, a non-starter vote on the shutdown, profanity, a proposal for a 70% tax hike on the wealthy, all in under 36 hours. Wait till they get rolling.
Yeah, I think it's a strategy that Republican campaign strategists are quietly welcoming, because what it does is it demonstrates that Democrats do not have control of their own party. Think about this. If you've run the entire midterm saying that the President of the United States is mercurial and divisive and we need an alternative in the United States, then where is that? We don't see anyone acting like an adult in the Democratic Party. Instead, immediately what we're getting is hysterical temper tantrums and not providing a contrast in any way. And I think that's the kind of thing that the president's going to be able to easily run against going into 2020. Nancy Pelosi, her daughter said this week, she can cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding. I think she starts this Congress wounded, and she needs to figure out a way to corral these Democrats. Okay, so one of those that she may need to corral, because they don't exactly see eye to eye on all the issues, is new Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's where this idea of a 70% tax comes in. Here is what she's saying about that.
Once you get to like the tippy tops on your 10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. As you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more. It only has ever been radicals that have changed this country.
Do you call yourself a radical?
Yeah, you know, if that's what radical means, call me a radical.
And Tom, she likened herself to President Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation, FDR with the New Deal. Hey, give her points for being honest about it.
No, exactly. I mean, she's willing to go out there and sort of lean into this idea. But to the point that she was making, I mean, at some point you have to, and she's been asked this before, You know, how do you pay for this stuff? In addition to this new Green Deal that she wants, there's Medicare for all. It's going to cost trillions of dollars. And so she's willing to say, look, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to soak the rich and to tax rates that we haven't seen in a long, long time in this country. I'm not sure that's a winning message for Democrats. I'm not sure that's something that even a majority of their party is going to buy into and something that they're going to run on in 2020. 70% taxes for the wealthiest people in this country. That's not going to be a good platform for them, I don't think, in 2020.
Okay, Doug and Vince, I want you both to quickly weigh in on this before we run out of time. So Doug first and then to Vince.
Look, I'm for climate change legislation. I think we have to offer more jobs to people, but we can't guarantee jobs. We can't engage in confiscatory taxes. We need a pro-growth agenda that's inclusive, not redistribution, if we're to succeed as a party.
I'd like to see any lawmaker who honestly answers questions about what they intend to do. She's telling us, but just the approach is not credible. She's talking out of both sides of her mouth here. She's saying she wants to collect tax revenue from the rich, punish them, but also she doesn't really care how we pay for anything. She doesn't even care if we have the revenue. In fact, this new Green New Deal rather, they don't care whether or not they have the revenue to pay for it. They just want to pass it.
Well, she was an economics minor at Boston
That's
University,
true. She's an
and so she knows maybe more about the economy than some other people out there. We will see how this all plays out. Doug, Tom, and Vince, have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you all.
Yes, thanks, Shannon. Bye-bye.
Now I want to bring in Hector Garza, who is Border Patrol Agent and Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council. Hector, great to see you today. You were standing actually behind the president yesterday as he was making his comments, and you were part of the group that was there to support the idea of wall funding. What do you need to keep America safe, and why a wall?
So it's very clear, Harris, is that Border Patrol agents are the real border security experts. We've been talking about a wall. We've been talking about physical barriers. We did it in El Paso, Texas. We did it in California. Now we need it in other parts along the border. And we also want to make it very clear that we're not calling for a wall from sea to shining sea. We're calling for a wall in strategic locations that's going to help our agents do their job and is going to keep our Border Patrol agents safe. We have to make sure that Congress funds border security and that they fund that border wall. It's so important for the American people, and it's so important for Border Patrol agents to keep them safe.
Do you wish at this point we could call this more what it is? Because it really isn't a wall. It's a reinforced fence line, a strong fence that's been there for decades. I mean, under former President Barack Obama in 2006 and then forwarding on to 2012, there was money allocated for this. How would this be different from what we already have on the ground?
Well, the way it would be different is that there's a lot of areas along the border that are not protected. For example, in the Laredo sector, we have 170 miles of river border in Laredo, Texas, and we have 0 miles of any type of physical barrier. It's smugglers galore in Laredo, Texas. We have a lot of people that are coming into the country illegally and smuggling those drugs. That's how it's going to be different, that we do need to reinforce the border in strategic locations.
Where are we now with the caravans that are coming here? And some of them have been massing in Tijuana and other areas.
So we do know that they've been moving along the border. So, for example, we've been seeing increased numbers of the caravan in the El Paso sector. We still see them in Tijuana. We saw what happened on New Year's Eve, where there were some aliens that tried to come across and they were throwing rocks at our agents. So the threat is still very real, not only from the caravan, but those dangerous drugs and a lot of people that are coming into this country with criminal records.
I want to point out what's happening in the center of our screen. Senator Chuck Schumer, after having a little sidebar, as we showed you on camera while Hector and I were talking with Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats outside the White House after their public comments in the microphones, he then left that to go get in the motorcade that will take him back to the Capitol. I bring all this up because we have gotten far afield from policy and we are steeped in politics right now. So you were with the President of the United States yesterday. What did he tell you about getting you what you need?
So the conversation was very, very real and very detailed. We discussed a lot of different issues to include the physical barrier, the wall, and that's why we made this press briefing at the last minute, because the information that we're providing President Trump was very accurate and very real, that he felt that the American public should hear us out, and we're very grateful for that. Now, we need to put politics aside, and we need to make sure that we fund border wall. You know, Pelosi, Mr. Schumer, they've supported walls in the past, even President Obama. I don't know why things are changing now. We need to get real, and we need to make sure that we do fund border security, and we do fund that border wall, physical barriers, whatever you guys want to call it. We need it so we can do our jobs. Now, President Trump is one of the only presidents that has actually reached out to the rank and file Border Patrol agents to see what our needs are, and that's exactly what we told them. We also spoke about loopholes in the law that encourage illegal immigration. We talked about the asylum claim process, and those are things that DHS Secretary Nielsen is already working on, and we look forward to some of those changes to make sure that we secure the border and we stop encouraging illegal immigration.
Look, I know that you at the Border Patrol don't want to be caught in between all of the politics of this, but have there been Democrats who have actually come forth and talked to you? And before you answer that question, we do have a bit of breaking news on the President of the United States, and Kevin Corke had started this reporting earlier, and now we can confirm. He will be making remarks in the Rose Garden shortly. We're awaiting that because we know the meeting now has broken up because we've seen everybody come out. They're streaming out of the White House now. So in the Rose Garden, we expect expeditiously to hear from the President. So I had just asked you about, and forgive me because I had to insert that in, Hector. I'd ask you just about the politics and all this and whether or not you've talked with any Democrats, if they've reached out.
So we do have a very close relationship with several Democrats. The National Border Patrol Council does have relationships with both parties, and we have had those conversations. Unfortunately, some of these talking heads that come out of the media at CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, and even some of these congressional representatives, they talk about how the wall does not work, but they've never spent a single day on the border. Yeah. They've never walked in the shoes of a Border Patrol agent, and if they were to do that, if they were to visit the border and actually get a real border tour, they would find out that a wall is needed on the southern border to protect the country. Yeah, and there are other issues too. I mean, I have a home not far from Nogales, and so I'm very familiar with these personally. But I would say this, when you have the reporting of 2 children who passed away in custody, I want to get you to talk to me a little bit about how you're handling the unaccompanied minors who are coming across the border. This will be our last point. Well, some of the Democrats were quick to judge our Border Patrol agents and what our agents did out there. It's no secret our agents rescue a lot of people on a regular basis. They've been recognized by a lot of members in Congress. Now, they were saying that some of these kids need medical checkups, that they needed all these types of services. Well, fund border security. Give us the money so we can do our job. Pay us, give us our paychecks, give us the proper money so that we can have the resources so we can train Border Patrol agents as paramedics. As it is, we have a lot of agents that are certified as paramedics so that we can provide that medical attention to those people that come into our custody. But again, they're quick to criticize, but give us the funding. Fund the border security, fund the border wall. Hector Garza, you've been a part of the news stream yesterday with the President today and then him coming up now next. I appreciate you talking with me on a busy 24 hours. Thank you very much. I know you've got a big job to do to protect everybody down there on both sides. Thank you.